So I'm at a friend's house now. It's just after I did my audit, and came over here to well, relax my nerves and drink some nuts tea. But I wanted to talk about the audit and why I did it, why I'm going to be doing it, why I think it's necessary, and what brought me to that point. Um, so start with why am I doing it? The reason I've decided to start videotaping law enforcement buildings and start speaking out is because for the past 5 years I've lived on the road. I'm sure you could tell by the state of my hat that I am not your average individual. I am what is called a nomad. I'm not necessarily a hippie. I'm not necessarily a train hopper. I've never actually ridden a train. I'm not exactly just a transient either. I travel with the intent to learn as much as I can. We're given very, very little time on this planet. And I've decided to use that time to learn as much as I can about the world that I was born into. And unfortunately, the legal systems and the judicial system and the political system of our world does not allow for that. A good friend of mine, Eric Jackson, has written a book that outlines the differences in the underground class. And we, on the streets, understand that. We know there's a difference between home bombs, tweakers, junkies, spunions, and your hippies and non-hippies, train corps kids. There's entire social categories in the underground, what you would call the street population. But the police make no distinction. And so, my hand's still shaking right now. And so the police, because of the uprising of anti-camping laws, but they're also called no-lie laws, means that police, especially you can see it in Denver, police will wake up the homeless simply for sleeping. And I don't think that's right. I think it's a violation of basic human rights, actually. We all have a right to sleep. And so when you're woken up at gunpoint because you're sleeping, when the police roll into an area that you have gone out of your way to make it non-accessible to other people, to make sure that other people aren't disturbed and bothered by you, and you're using public land to do so, the police have got no right, no authority to tell you you cannot use public land to sleep. Which leads me to why I'm doing this. I've traveled the country, spent the past 5 years wandering at the lowest of societal lows you can be. I've spent the past 5 years living on the street. And I've seen firsthand how the police blatantly disregard the rules that they are supposed to be bound by. Damn it, I need a paper clip. I have seen, hold on. No, that'll work even better. I have seen the police abuse people, violate their rights, unlawful searches, unlawful seizures, unlawful arrests. I've witnessed it. I've been part of it. And I got tired of it. And I figured there's one constitutionally protected way to hold these people accountable. And that is to film them. And being who I am, I run a higher risk of being arrested because they really don't care about homeless people. I think that it is the right and obligation of every American citizen to hold the people that they have paid and who have sworn to protect them accountable. I think that we all need to hold our law enforcement, our politicians, our elected officials, anybody that we have given the authority over us. So that's why I'm doing it. That's what brought me to doing it. I got tired of it. We live in a time now where a reciting of the Declaration of Independence from a news station with no context, they simply quoted parts of the Declaration of Independence, and our president took it personally. And our president right now is capitalism in my eyes incarnate. He is a businessman. And a businessman who is, by all means and standards, the leader of our country. And so if the leader of our country is personally offended by our Declaration of Independence, we should take action. Because the presidential branch is only 1 out of 3. And if 1 has been corrupted, the other 2 are supposed to step in, and they haven't. They don't, and they won't. And so it is the right and obligation of the people to step in. And so if the other 2 branches can't or won't do anything, then they themselves have also been corrupted. And we see this. Not a damn one of us. Not a damn one of us will disagree that our politicians and our leaders are corrupted. We all understand that. We all know why we went to war with Iraq. We all know that these checkpoints on the highways are illegal. We all know that the police are not above us, but they act like it, and we let them act like it. Why do I think this is a good thing? Because I see more and more people doing it. And you can scroll for days on YouTube watching video after video after video after video of police violating their rules. Attempting to intimidate people, trying to force people. You can watch it in the courts. You can watch it in public buildings, federal buildings, where the employees themselves don't recognize people's rights. And it's time we took a stand. And video cameras don't lie. It's one of the most beautiful inventions we've ever created. The ability to perfectly capture what is going on right now for everybody to see. So it holds them accountable. Now, I want to talk a little bit about the audit that I just did, my first audit. And how that went, the ways it could have gone, and the way it usually goes. Here in Havana, it's a small town, we've got a very small population, and we're actually trying to recover from the big tobacco problem back in the 80s and 70s and whatnot. Havana, Florida is the home of the Havana Clearleaf cigar. And so this town's always been very small. It's always been very close knit. Some of the cops that are there, I went to high school with. And as a result, as normal in small towns, I'm a local. So they're not going to give me too big of problems. And I've talked to the locals out here, my friend whose house I'm at. They don't give him any problems. And so the police here are really good. They're really cool about respecting people's rights. You heard it with, I believe it was Andrews, who said that they're just trying to protect people's rights, and I truly believe they are. But what happened today is what should have happened. What happened today is what should happen at every police department across the United States. They come out, they see you, They make no attempt to actually show that they're coming out to talk to you. I know that for a fact that Andrews came out because somebody in there told him I was out there recording, and he just came out to see what I was doing. You know, because it looked like he put something in his car, but it's not his car. It might be one of the ones he uses, but it was not the one that he was just at the gas station not 2 minutes beforehand getting into. So I fully believe they just came out to see what I was doing. But when they found out what I was doing, he had no problems. None at all. Came out. Told him I was taking some pictures. And he said, take all the pictures you want. You have every right to do that. We're not going to stop you in any way. And then on the way back, I ran across one at the subway. And I haven't seen that officer before. He's a new guy. I'm pretty sure he's a rookie too. He was one of the ones at the gas station with Andrews when I went to buy that pack of cigarettes. And so I didn't know how he was going to respond. It kind of looked like he was about to do something. But when I saw the sheriff roll in, I've had issues with the sheriff's department out here before because I live about 3 miles down the road with my grandparents currently whenever I'm in Florida. So that I'm not in a tent. They don't want me in a tent. But I've had numerous times where I'd be walking through my neighborhood and the sheriff's department will roll up and start to harass me. There was one time where the sheriff's department, one of the sheriffs, actually, I was walking down the road and he passed by me. And the moment he passed by me, he slammed on the brakes and pulled a U-turn in the middle of the road. And so I didn't break a step. I didn't act like anything was any different. I walked through my next door neighbor's front yard like I always do, like I always have since I was, 6 years old. And I got to my front porch. It takes me about 5 minutes to smoke a cigarette if I'm not nervous. And I was not nervous at that time. I was on private property. There's nothing he could do about it. In fact, my whole neighborhood is private property. So, after about 10 minutes of him sitting in the middle of the road or out front side of my next door neighbor's house staring at me, because it's a private road, I went out there to see what he was doing. Because I have that right. And so I walked up to the car and asked him for his name and badge number and asked him what he was doing. And he said that he needed to see my ID. And I told him it didn't work that way. So he detained me because I wouldn't show him my ID because I pulled him over. And when I told him no and went to walk away, he grabbed my arm. And I'm more wild than anything else. You saw it with the camera. My hand shakes like I was ready to fight or run standing in front of the police department. And it's just the way how I've been treated the past 5 years. It's PTSD. There's nothing I can do about it. So I turned around and I growled because it's every animal respects that. Every animal understands what a growl is. And I told him to take his hands off me. And I reached in my back pocket, pulled out my wallet, and threw it at his feet. And told him, run my name if you're that serious. If you that sure, then I'm trespassing. Run my name. Keep in mind, they'd pulled me over twice before. He ran my name and told me I was free to go. And I told him that he had 5 minutes to get off my property and out of my neighborhood, because the whole neighborhood is private property. And they come out there and do their runs on our consent. I told him he had 5 minutes to get out of my neighborhood or I was calling his supervisor and coming back with a shotgun. And he said, I will sit here for as long as I want. And I said 5 minutes. And I walked back to my house and he was gone. And I think he knew he fucked up. So that's why when the sheriff rolled up in Subway, I was very quick to go, hey, look, the sheriff's department. Let's see what they're doing. And the way he responded to me is the way how they should always respond. He asked me very politely if he was in the way of a picture that he was trying to take. He was unaware of the fact that he was the picture. Or if he was aware, he didn't make any effort to make me aware of that knowledge. So, the first cop got out of the car, and it looked like he was about to say something to me, and the sheriff, I'm pretty sure, gave him some kind of signal, just don't mess with it. And that's the way how they are supposed to run. That's the way it's supposed to work. The way how it works in a lot of places around the country, and you can look on YouTube, you can find it here. Look, Gavin Syme, News Now Houston, News Now Patrick, News Now Oklahoma, Johnny 5-0. There's a bunch of guys that do it. And they'll walk up and demand ID. You're not allowed to film here. This is public property, but you're not allowed to film here. I need some ID. I'm not going to ID myself. I don't have to. No, you don't have to. It is your Fourth Amendment right. And so they'll detain them, and they'll try to intimidate them. They'll get up in their face. They're going to tell you, you're going to do this, or I'm going to take you to jail. That's the way it usually goes. And out on the road, I've had numerous encounters with police. They walk up to you for no reason at all. I've first experience. There's actually one time I was sitting in a park, minding my own business. Wasn't even smoking. And this cop rolls by and sees me and drives off. And I had that gut feeling, oh, fuck, here we go. Not 30 seconds later, he rolls back around. It looked like he went down to the end of the street, pulled a U-turn, came right back. Parks his cruiser, gets out, and walks over to me. He said, how you doing? I said, fine, how are you? He said, good, you got some ID? I said, why are you identifying me? He said, well, because I want to make sure you don't have any warrants. And I looked at him and I said, sir, you're not allowed to do that. That's illegal. It's an unlawful search. I'm allowed to be secure in my person's property, papers, and belongings. All of it. Anything that is mine and me is not subject to a search without probable cause or a warrant. And so I asked him, what crime do you think I've committed? He said, I don't think you've broken any law. I just want to make sure you don't have any warrants. And I told him no. So he threatened to take me down to the police station and identify me. So I produced identification. I've also had encounters where the police walk up, and keep in mind, I live outside. I'm homeless by all intents and purposes. So I live in a tent for the most part, except for when I'm with family. And living in a tent anywhere in the United States is illegal. You're not allowed to live in a tent. You're not even allowed to live in a tent on your own property. And so when they walk up to me and mine, the homeless community, we've already broken the law. They don't have to have any probable cause, any warrants to search. Because if we as the homeless ask them, what law do you think I've committed? They will say, urban camping. You're homeless. You live outside. I can see your tent on your bag, and you're homeless. I have reason to believe that come tonight, you will pitch that tent where you are not supposed to and go to sleep. And that is legal. They can legally do that. That's reasonable suspicion that a crime is going to be committed. And so, I watch a lot of these First Amendment auditors on YouTube, and whenever they do this, it's always inside of a house. It's always on private property. And I'm fortunate right now that I can come to a friend's house and smoke and do this. But I haven't seen any film from the inside of a tent. I haven't seen any First Amendment auditors from my perspective. and I think there needs to be one. Now, being homeless, I'm at the bottom of the food chain, and I run major risks inherent in just my everyday to day life. It's one of the reasons why I've got PTSD. Because, like I said, at any given moment, it is perfectly legal for a cop to stop and ID me, as long as I have my book bag on. Um, so, me doing this is inherently dangerous. More so than News Now Houston or News Now Patrick or Johnny 5-0. I don't know really if Johnny 5-0's got out. I've never actually seen him inside of a house. But he's got a car. And if he's got a car, which means he doesn't have a tent on his back, which means he doesn't have that inherent risk. My inherent risks are if News Now Houston gets arrested, he doesn't lose all of his belongings. If News Now Patrick gets arrested, he doesn't lose all of his belongings. If I get arrested, I lose everything. I also have got more of a risk of being beaten because people view the homeless as insane or drug addicts. And the police are known for beating the crap out of the homeless. They're known for it. They do it all the time. Like, kids out on the streets don't call the cops because we view them as enemy combatants. And it's really the way we view them. They give us the responses a predator in the woods does. There's no reason for us not to view them that way. And so for me, I'm, rather than taking a stand against unjust individuals, every First Amendment auditor understands that he has a likelihood of being shot by that police officer. But not every First Amendment auditor has the full understanding of just how dangerous those people are. Every now and then they get a glimpse of it. But for me and mine, it's what we call them, and our very house can be taken away. In that moment. In that moment. Like, it's not a matter of, oh, we're going to go through a court system and they're going to come at me with everything they've got and I'm going to sit inside of my house and continue to fight them. It's a matter of the moment they come out, we're all going to jail. We're all going to jail. We're all getting beaten. We're all having some false charge put on us because we're sleeping. We also don't have the security of a locked door. And so when they come, people's tents get cut. They get destroyed. People's very homes are ripped from them. And they're left to the elements. And in Denver, they were actually going around and taking blankets off of the homeless. And I was there. I was part of that at that point. The only reason I managed to get it to where I could pitch a tent was because I out crazied them. I'm not going to go into it, but it was crazy. And if you know me, you know the story about the hill. And yeah, it was crazy. But I'm making this and these documenting everything that I'm doing because in my life I've had to deal with way more than any American citizen should ever have to deal with from American government. And it's reaching the point where I'm beginning to fear for my safety at every time I open the door. Every time I leave my tent. Every time I walk down the street. I fear for my life. And I'm tired of it. And I reached a point where I no longer care if I get shot, if I die, and if something happens to me, as long as the American people watch it happen. as long as people of the world are aware of actually what's going on. Because if they aren't, if this documentation isn't put in place, if people aren't already accessible to this information, they're going to see it as just another junkie, as just another dirty hippie, just another insane homeless kid. And if I get shot by police for exercising my rights and saying no, I need people to watch it. I need people to see this. So that's why I'm doing this. Yeah.